Welcome to the podcast Following Spirit Without Hesitation, Stories from Journeys of Following Trust. And today I have with me Gwyneth Robbins-Cox. Hello, Gwyneth.
Hi, hi,
Hi.
lovely to see
Nice.
you.
Yeah, lovely to have you here. So I know Gwyneth from when we did our Pellowah teaching training together, when the woman who first channeled Pellowah came to teach. She travelled from Australia to the UK, and we met in Wales. And we've kind of kept tabs on each other and kept in touch. And I know I've connected with you through your soul work as well. And what I really feel called to say as well is I just find you such a beautiful, potent, gentle channel. I
Oh,
really,
thank you.
I love your seeing your posts on Facebook, and
Thank you.
there's a real, yeah, I can't find the word, but that the gentleness comes through. Is there anything else you'd like to say to introduce yourself, Gwyneth?
Um, to try not to be too formal, I guess. Yes, we met up as we were training to be Pellowah teachers, and that was a big stepping stone in my life for sure. But prior to that, for many years, I've been a crystal healing teacher as well. And those have been big things that have opened up my pathway, and also the soul work, the channeling work. So yeah. And I would say that as we were chatting before, a lot of things are very heart-centered for me. So that's kind of yeah, where I'm at. It's all about the heart. It's all about the heart and the soul and the love.
Yeah. And I see we're both wearing different shades of red today as well, which
Yeah,
feels
yeah,
very like that heart connection to
yeah,
that love.
sure. Yeah.
Okay. So as you know, this podcast is called Following Spirit Without Hesitation, and we all have our own understanding of what following spirit means. What does that mean for you, Gwyneth?
I think that following spirit, yeah, we could say following spirit, following source, following our intuitive senses within. And I feel that over the many years of my life, I've realized that when I haven't followed spirit, that I have found myself in difficult, challenging sort of situations. I feel that following spirit is it's what we're here to do. It's what we're here to kind of deepen our journey. That makes sense. Um, yeah, it makes us who we are. It's that real sort of deep connection to our origin as well. It's bringing through all that inspiration that divine source spirit gives us, that it's there all the time.
You beautiful.
Yeah.
And would you like to say something about how that process has changed over the years? Because as you say, I think it's learning that when we don't do it and we end up in these really sticky, challenging situations, and it's like, well, I didn't follow my guidance or I didn't follow my heart. And, and then it gets to a point, at least for me, it gets to a point where I feel it's like the choiceless choice. It's that's the way
Mhm.
I need to go. Um, and but that's taken me years of making those um, or being corrected when I haven't, shall
Yeah.
we say. So how's that process unfolded for you?
Well, I think that the best examples really for me is, I mean, a lot of people think that I've made very spontaneous leaps in my life in choices. actually moving to Glastonbury was one of them. And although I'm not particularly enjoying it here, revisiting here again, I'm sure that I know that there's a deeper reason to it. But the thing is I think that, it's about deepening the trust, deepening the intuition, and very often that happens spontaneously. And to the outside world, in my case anyway, I think, I think there's a sort of like a critique that can come in sometimes where people maybe feel that, oh, well, you didn't really think about that much, did you? But I think for me, it's always the soul that is moving you forwards, and then the body being follows later, or it does in my case anyway. It's just that knowing that, okay, this is the next step, and I'm not too sure why. Um, and one of the examples actually is in one of the stories where that I was going to sort of talk about, which is yes, actually doing the Pellowah level 3 training was that I wasn't actually going to do it. I'd actually said that I wasn't going to do it.
Okay.
And I think deep down there was something else going on. It was
Mm.
almost like, I don't know, turning away from something because, I don't know, for some strange reason. And I was actually giving a Pellowah session to somebody by distance. And this was a month before the Pellowah level 3 teacher training was about to take place. And I just, whilst I was in my Pellowah joy, in that lovely bubble space of amazing light and, I don't know, joy, just joy. I kind of heard this voice came through to me as clear as anything, and was just saying, why aren't you doing the level 3 training? Why aren't you doing it?
Mm.
And it was like a switch. And I realized, oh my goodness, here is an opportunity that I'm actually pushing aside here. And yeah, why aren't I doing it? And so the next day I got on to Julie, our our
Yeah.
teacher, and said, have you got a space left? And she said, yes, I do. I put one aside because I knew you'd contact me. Um, yeah, and so everything came together like clockwork because it was, meant to happen, I'm sure. So I think that for me, it works in that kind of sense of spontaneity. It's like, yes, this is what we have to do. This is what I need to do now, you know? So I think it is the soul speaking to us. And the thing is being open to listen to that
Yeah.
always.
And
And
I feel like what you were saying about, with being in Glastonbury at the moment and you were sort of led there or guided there. I think sometimes, and I just want to sort of differentiate between,
mm,
spirit leads us something. We know we're following that guidance, and yet we do end up in these uncomfortable, tricky situations, yet we know we're supposed to be there, which is very different from when we haven't followed it and we end up in tricky, challenging situations and we're like, I got myself into this.
yeah,
So, and I think it's really coming, constantly coming back to myself in those situations and tuning in and like saying, yeah, I know I'm following my guidance. And it's like you're saying, and there's a deeper purpose for me being here, even if I don't know that yet. And it's really trusting in that. Would you say that resonates?
yeah, I think that's true. And sometimes it's a very deep healing or integration of something that has almost um, bypassed our attention by our own volition, if you like.
Yes.
No, a more deeper shadow, perhaps, that we've almost kind of ritually cast aside, but you know, it sort of re-emerges as something else over and over, you know,
Yeah.
even if it is just purely to trust our intuition more, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the story, but yeah.
Beautiful. So you mentioned one of your
Mm.
stories earlier. I think you mentioned the crystal healing. So how did
Mhm.
you start out on this journey of your spiritual path?
On my spiritual path. Oh my goodness. Well, that was I guess yeah, well, I won't go on to I won't tell you everything, but I guess talking about the crystal healing was a journey of spontaneity because um I actually had a shop many years ago in Cornwall, and it was called Inspiration. And there was a lady who used to come into the shop, and she was a crystal healer. And every week she would say, "Okay, what crystal would you like to work with this week?" And she'd always leave me with a crystal, and I'd kind of like sit with it and carry it around with me. And, you know, things would happen. Sometimes it would bring up a lot of you know, deep stuff and healing, and other times it'd be really beautiful and very joyful. And I realized how very powerful crystals were. And um, then I think it was a couple of months later, I contacted the lady who had taught my friend and just said to her, "Oh, when are you going to be teaching another course?" And she said, "In 2 weeks' time." So it was like, she said, "In 2 weeks' time or later on in the autumn." And I thought, no, it's not going to happen later on in the autumn. I know I need to do this now. And it was really strange. You know how you kind of, you know, this whole process of like, I need to do a crystal healing course happened whilst I was doing something mundane, and I was actually hoovering. And whilst hoovering, it was like, you need to do a crystal healing course. You need to contact that lady. So I did. I took the action immediately and followed the intuition. And then, of course, you know, then you find yourself in this place and yeah, kind of, okay, this is a new thing for me, because learning with crystals was very new for me, because prior to that, I had actually learned a lot of body work, so reflexology and aromatherapy. Although, you know, with aromatherapy, you've got the energies of the oils and everything. You know, this was really kind of bringing in a deeper level of working with energy
Hmm.
and, you know, working with energy, quantum energy, because that's how crystals work, really,
Yeah.
through that kind of quantum entrainment, I guess. And so that really opened up a whole new doorway for me. And it was really trusting in that inspiration and that instruction, really, from my soul, you know, to kind of take the action necessary at that time. And it was a really big journey for me that, um, yeah, it kind of brought out a lot more confidence. It brought out more of me. It made me more me. Because prior to that, I had been through a horrible divorce with my second husband. Things had got very unpleasant, very messy around our two children, you know, like access and stuff like that. It really, you know, it was very unpleasant. And learning, doing the crystal journey was fantastic for me. It really was a big open door. In fact, probably one of the biggest, which is why I absolutely adore crystals. Really do. You know, it's yeah, one of my biggest things that I always come back to. And it always kind of seems to creep into everything, crystals.
Mm.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
beautiful. And I feel, very often these things that we learn, we take us through a healing process of our own first before we even
yeah.
get to work with people on that.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. And in fact, our course was extra long because, in fact, it was a year longer than it would have been because our teacher couldn't have anybody to her barn at the time because it had been flooded and there was, yeah, so we actually had a whole extra year. So it was actually 3 years in
Wow.
learning. During that time, I had a lot of opportunity to gather more case studies. I did so many case studies. Yes, lots and lots of learning. And each time it sort of deepened the process, deepened the knowledge of crystals and working with them. And also, that kind of, and I started to share the knowledge of crystal healing with other people. And I think that, when you start to do that, teaching always gives you more learning, it deepens the whole process in yet, another level entirely.
Yeah. I feel that learning to communicate our craft in whatever that might be in a way that other people can understand who might not be familiar with it is a really big part
Mm.
of really anchoring that in.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
I also love what you say about the mundane, while you're doing the vacuuming. And
Yeah.
I have similar experiences. I need to go and do something physical. And I was on a Buddhist path for a long time. And, one of the things
Yeah.
within Thich Nhat Hanh's community, and it's like do the washing up to do the washing up, that sense of
Yeah.
mindfulness. And I think
Yeah.
very often in these mundane activities, because we are just mindful in them, we're just doing them, that kind of opens up that part of ourselves that just brings that information through.
Absolutely. Yeah, a favourite one is the washing up, isn't it? And peeling potatoes, another one. It's that, yeah, doing the mundane things where you're just, yeah, kind of just slightly kind of doing the mundane because you don't have to think about it as much and you're just following that, but you're going into a much deeper level of awareness, I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
yeah. So we have these tools in our everyday environment.
Mm. And also it's dreaming as well, I think with dreams, very much more so now, I feel that, sometimes we can be, in that liminal state between awake and asleep. And also, we're very busy in our dream world as well now. I feel, we're journeying as we're asleep. The consciousness is really deepening and expanding, and I think that sometimes when we, supposedly wake up into the daytime, we're bringing through so much more, sometimes that needs a lot of processing to really understand what it is. What do I need to do with this information? But it's those downloads, isn't it, that kind of
Yes.
occasionally kind of bring you to your paper and pen at 3 o'clock in the morning. You just like, no, you're not going back to sleep now. You just need to get up and write this down.
Yeah, I get
That
those
kind of thing.
nudges sometimes as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
They're very often about 3 or 4 in the morning.
Yes, that's the time. Yeah,
So that
yeah,
brings us nicely into your next story, I believe, about how that talk of really opening up to that spirit world. Um,
Oh, the channel. And
mm,
yeah, well, that is a really funny story, really, to bring it into the everyday, because it truly was. Um, I think that we're all open to channel. We're all open to channel. We're all able to receive,
yeah.
for sure. You know, I've taught soul mediumship and for quite a long time now, and I've seen the shifts that have happened within people. And sometimes I think people get more than what they thought they were going to receive, you know, that it's not just a how to do kind of course.
Mm.
Um, but yes, we're all open to channel. But this happened to me. I was staying in my mother's house for a weekend. And this was almost 10 years ago now. And I was meant to be being there to do some teaching, but that was cancelled at the last minute because something had happened with, I think, the person who was hosting the venue. And anyway, so we just decided to have like this, you know, weekend of leisure, I guess, in sunny Basingstoke. Not really. And I literally I just woke up on the Saturday morning receiving all of this information, and I knew it was from source and from beings, other beings. And I immediately was extremely skeptical, because that's been a pattern for me, and I think actually that pattern for me has come into a lot of things where I've been kind of probably slightly wary. It's almost like a safeguard for me, you know, where I'm just, oh, well, hold on a minute. You just wait a minute. What is this now? Just what's happening? So, and it would be as if what would happen would be my husband would ask me a question, you know, a sort of soul-based question, or a question about the world or the universe or something, and the answer was immediately there. It's hard to describe, but it was almost as if I was here on the earth, but also connected to some higher dimension through other beings at the same time.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I did was I I actually asked these beings, and I say they were beings because I felt it was a collective. It was a collective of energy.
Hmm.
And I asked them, okay, if you're nice beings, not nasty beings, can you send me some healing energy? And this energy came through, and it was just so beautiful and also familiar to me. And it was like nothing that I'd ever felt before. And I thought, I felt, yes, this is okay. And so, yeah, on that level of deepening to trust, it was like, okay, this is a gateway now that we can open. So, so then
Hmm.
I spent the entire weekend, it just went on and on. And it became a bit of fun, really. We were out in the woods, and my husband was asking things, and it would just be there. And it was like this, it was as if I was on a piece of elastic, you know, this connection
Mm.
had started, and I thought, wow, you know, this is different. This is really nice. Um, but then after that, yeah, life became very serious, and because my husband's son, um, bless him, had collapsed, and he had a brain tumor, and the brain tumor had he'd had it before, but it had never really gone away. There was always still some there, and it had grown again. And so he collapsed, and he knew it on in his own mind that this was kind of like the beginning of his journey home. And so we had a whole well, almost, well, it was 9 months, in fact, from that point, I think, before he died, sadly. But it was almost as if, the channel had started to come through to hold us
Mm,
in a way and to keep us
yeah.
in a sense of trust,
Mm.
that there was something else, beyond, this world. Not that we didn't believe that anyway, but it was a deeper and more expansive connection, I think, to life and the universe, the cosmos, the soul, and who we are as beings here, really. Um,
I think that's
and then,
beautiful the way, sorry to interrupt, but
yeah,
that's beautiful the way that spirit does bring that through to hold us through those really
absolutely,
difficult,
absolutely.
difficult
Yeah,
times. And how beautiful to be aware of that as well, that
yeah,
being held.
yeah. It was a difficult time, a very challenging time, a time of a lot of grief, a lot of grief,
Mm,
and holding space for my husband, for sure.
yeah.
Um, yeah. Um, and then through that, it was actually not long. Um, yeah, it was actually just before my husband's son's funeral that I had been invited to go to this Osho Leela mystic event as a teacher. And I really, at that point, didn't want to go. And it was doing some crystal healing, like a crystal journey for people. Um, and I tried to get out of it at that point. But, spirit again kind of has these ways of pulling us. And I was really persuaded, the guy that was running it, said, no, but we want you to come and do it, because I'd actually tried to put one of my students to do it, um, who was willing to do it, but, you know, so that was kind of like a process that I had to go through. But the reason being was that I had to share a mobile home space with two other ladies who were also teaching that weekend. And one of these ladies walked in, and literally the recognition, it was a soul recognition. I'd never seen her in this lifetime before. She comes from Canada, and I looked at her and I thought, oh my goodness, I know you. I just know you. And she ended up teaching me her way of soul mediumship. And so I really started to harness this way of channeling, with her wisdom and her help and encouragement. So that was obviously, another sense of divine trust, because I really didn't want to go to this mystic fair at that time, because I wanted to be with my husband and just support him. Um, but I needed to be there, obviously, to do what I needed to do, but also to meet this lady. Um,
And just
so yeah,
to pop in again, that often is the way we can go to these events and we think we're there for one thing and that we're actually
oh,
there for
absolutely,
something else entirely.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. It's absolutely, I don't think there's ever a time where we could totally second guess or totally know the entire story of why we're doing anything. We only we're only aware of the tip of the iceberg that we're sitting on. Maybe
Yeah.
and there's so much more, and so much more is revealed layer by layer by layer. But yeah, after that, I began to channel more, and it was I have always been very resistant, I think, and quite reluctant in that sense of doing those kind of things. Certainly at the beginning, because it was like, um, I would get kind of like an idea that I needed to write something down, that something was coming through and I needed to write it down. And that if I didn't take myself off and write it down, I would feel very agitated, really agitated within myself. I couldn't rest. So I would have to go off and just write all these pages of stuff. And then that became part of the book that I wrote, which was called the Crystal Soul Priestess. So, and that took me, well, that took me 4 years to do. So it's everything has taken me a long time. And I think it is that it's not so much not trusting. Well, I guess maybe it is slightly not trusting, but it's like that kind of, I think anyone who does this sort of work, sometimes there's this big thing of imposter syndrome comes in. And where on one level, yes, we completely trust the soul and what the soul is bringing in, then there's another human level which just says, no, 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 who do you think you are? This isn't real. This isn't, it's that monkey mind
Yes,
thing
and I
that
just
that
want, you
happens.
mentioned safeguarding earlier as well, and
Mm,
I feel for me it's like it's that doubt, but doubt isn't necessarily always negative, it is
yeah,
that, like you say, that safeguarding, that sense of
yeah,
just really being, where is this coming from? Is this coming from my ego, or is this really
yeah,
coming from spirit? And it's that,
yeah,
it's an integrity, right? Really sort of tempering that and aligning with it and being as certain as we can be, you know,
yes,
which I
for
feel is an
sure.
important process to sort of
Yeah,
really keep us on the path.
yeah. And it keeps us grounded as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because I think it's quite hard sometimes, to have one foot in one world or one sort of way of being and one foot in another world. And there's kind of like a balance between the two. There's a rationality that has to take place, really, that kind of deepens the trust and deepens that process, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. That's some journey, Gwyneth. That's and there's a lot to think about within that. I want to ask a little bit more about your book.
Yeah, so I brought out the book in 2021. I think it was right at the beginning of December, but that was a process of doing so much editing, re-editing, which, it's not a fun job, really. And of course, being something that's kind of creative as well, I think that there's always that inner critique which constantly tells you, no, that's not good enough, or what about doing it this way? And again, eventually I had to take, notice from spirit, really, which said, come on now, just get on with it. You finished. Just finish it now. That's it. Stop fiddling with it or trying to alter it. It's not going to be any different, really, to how it is now. That's not, how it's meant to be. So it was kind of, yeah, this. And again, I was up all night doing this self-published book, which is on Amazon. And yeah,
Get
it's,
past that perfectionism, isn't it?
oh yeah,
Which is
yeah, yeah.
very,
Past
very,
yeah, totally.
yeah,
Yeah. So that was quite a journey in itself.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then this then brings you into, I know, the next story you're wanting to talk about, which I'm
Mm.
really looking forward to hearing more about, the energy that you've brought through.
Yeah.
Would you like to,
Yeah.
I mean,
So
either maybe they connect, or, but,
yeah, I
do it in
think
your
that
own way.
that everything really connects in a way. Um, it does connect. It does connect because I well, I'll speak more about that connection sort of later, but yeah. So the whole thing of bringing through Ishvara energy was quite has been quite a story of, again, a kind of deep level of trust, and also a lot of resistance as well. And that kind of, again, that sort of testing myself, and, really kind of going into that space of, is this real? What is this? Is it really, is it a real thing? You know? So basically what happened was, in 2020, when we had the lockdown, um, and disappointingly, I think that was when we were going to do Pellowah level 3 training, and but Kachina, who channeled Pellowah, had been sent home. uh, Otherwise, she'd have been stuck in the UK and Europe. Um, so I think I just went into this self-healing. I was actually doing some self-healing, laying down. It was April, and I just went into, again, this higher dimensional space. And it felt as if I was going up through layers of reality, layers of existence. And I was given information, and I was given some kind of healing energy. I don't know how long I was in this sort of state of connection, but it felt like a first initiation, I would say, of the energy. And then when I came out of this, I wrote everything down. And then I kind of looked at it and thought, but what is this? Okay, what am I supposed to do with this? And I worked with this healing energy for a year, on and off. I used it with my husband. He's always a great guinea pig, very willing and very, very helpful. And I actually channeled the energy, transmitted the energy, um, as distant healing to various people. And I started to kind of feel, yeah, there's a pattern here. I can, wrote things down about it. And then this carried on for about a year, on and off. And then I left it for almost an entire year. I just kind of thought, no, don't be silly, just leave that alone. Um, don't think about it. Just get on with other things. And then we ended up doing the Pellowah training, which was November 2022. And I remember that Kachina did stand in front of me, and she did say, most of you aren't working to your potential. I do remember her saying that all of you could be doing so much more. And I remember that she said, and if any of you have a healing modality to bring through, then for goodness sake, get on with it. And I thought, oh my God, does she know? Does she know? And
Kachina's so down
anyhow,
to earth, right?
yeah, she's
No,
just
no
so,
bullshit,
so,
right?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. She just tells it as it is, completely tells it as it is.
Mm.
She was right in front of me at this point, because I was kind of in the middle of the sofa, if you remember, and she was just right there, and I thought, oh, okay then. And I remember I'd actually taken a crystal with me, and she said to me, oh, that's a gateway crystal. And so thinking about it now, I feel, yes, Pellowah was my gateway to bringing Ishvara into the world, for sure, because it just gave me the expanded awareness, the consciousness, I guess, to bring it through, to continue with it. And so the following year, I just taught a lot of Pellowah. I say a lot. I concentrated on Pellowah. But then towards the end of that year, so 2023, I was kind of hearing these kind of, yes, you need to bring through, you need to get on and do this healing modality, you need to work on this, stop pushing it aside. So I started to work with it a lot more, and I started talking to people about it, and they were interested in learning about it. And so this was kind of like where I had to put a date into the diary, in a sense, for myself to say, okay, by this time, this will be done, because I'd been working with the energy, I'd been giving the energy, but it was kind of like I didn't know how to teach and attune people to this energy. I didn't know all the details at all. And it was a process of always constantly, whatever I was thinking was not correct. It was like going into the otherworldly space, or the higher dimensional, the multi-dimensional space of where this energy had come from, and where it had been channeled from in the first place. And one day I decided, okay, I'm going to channel. And I literally went into a space of another initiation, where I went to a place. I was told that, do you agree? Do you agree to fully bring through this energy? So I said, yes, I do. And I was given almost like a big attunement, a big reattunement to this energy. And lots of things happened. There were lots of colours, there were lots of words, and it came in waves and waves and waves of energy. And as I sat there, literally just pinned to my seat, I had tears of joy just streaming down my face. And after that, it was yet another case of trusting what I'd been given, writing everything down as much as I could. And yeah, and then putting this all together into a workbook, if you like. And then with the attunement is a spoken light language, which was so bizarre because I had no idea that that's how it would be done. I thought it would be done as a hands-on thing or something, but it was spoken. So I then decided that I needed to try this out. And so again, my husband was very obliging and said, yes, we're going to spend a day doing this. Well, that particular day was quite, again, amusing, because I woke up and I had this cramp in my foot. And so as I was hopping across the floor and saying, I can't do this, I'm not doing it, I can't do this, my husband just turned round and said to me, you are doing it. We've put aside the time to do this, and you're going to do it.
Oh,
And it was like, it was almost as if actually he was being given those words,
yeah, it sounds like
or
that.
that was really coming from a deep soul connection of, of his own, that I do feel that he is part of the Ishvara energy for sure. And so we did this attunement, and I thought, okay, well, I don't know if this has really worked, but I'll know if he gives me a healing session. So I gave him a healing session, and then he gave me a healing session, and we were both very blissed out at this point. And I could feel this energy that I had channeled coming back to me through him. And that was the most bizarre thing. And at that point, I then realized that this was the energy that had been channeled to me from the beings that I had encountered all those years before, back in 2016, when I'd had the weekend at my mum's house and had opened up to channel. And
Amazing.
so, yeah, so it was. nothing is ever, I think the thing is, nothing is ever given to us all at once
Yeah.
because we're not open to sometimes we are. Yeah. And I think probably, now that we are um so much more open and conscious, things are so much more spontaneous, but it is that trust, always the trust, so I think, we're given things in bits and pieces, little jigsaw
Yeah,
moments, so
definitely.
that we can then piece it all together in the way that it needs to be pieced together.
Yeah.
So that was how Ishvara came about, and then I taught the first workshop in September 2024. So, and that we have a nice community of people now, all Ishvara practitioners. So there are 25 Ishvara practitioners now, and it's very lovely because when we get together and send a transmission of energy to Gaia, to the earth, we're really connecting through our hearts to her heart and creating this light grid, I feel, around the earth that then goes out into the cosmos and comes back to us as well. And it's really beautiful. And I think there's so much more that will open up through it.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's I for sure don't know everything about it, and I feel that it's yeah. We also have a way of giving Ishvara, which is by distance, as short bursts, and we call those Ishvara blessings. And it seems as if those are getting more and more profound. People have experienced some big shifts through, just receiving these short blessings. So that's really interesting and very profound. And again, everything is always a process of trust, that kind of, you know, um, just placing all expectation aside, I feel really in how it's meant to be. How is it meant to be received? What does it look like? All of these things. Um, yeah, and just continually going into that space of nothingness, that pool of potential, which is part of Ishvara energy. We're really going into that deep alignment. So essentially, Ishvara is about divine peace, divine love, and divine joy, because, it's the ultimate is divine joy, because that's the highest frequency that we can possibly be in, that ecstatic joy as human beings of increased, expanded consciousness and light that we are becoming now. Yeah. And
Yeah.
through that, there is that deep whirlpool of creative energy, which arises through that peace and love. Because when we're truly aligned to that, we can just be and bring out the most beautiful things for ourselves and really connect to our mission here, our purpose here as divine, eternal souls of light.
Whoa. Oh, that was so beautiful. And I feel like, as I said at the beginning, I mentioned a little about your channeling. I also feel that that's a bit of that energy that comes through your words that you share on your social media posts
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. Well, I love your words as well. Your poems are beautiful and your insights, absolutely lovely.
Oh, thank you.
Really lovely. So divine.
I haven't been writing much poetry later. I'm kind of like the spirit has me focused on this podcast right now. So I'm being restructured, I feel, and yet I'll probably talk about that more in another episode, but I've also been shown, shall we just say something about the fluidity of my poetry, not to limit it to poems of words.
Ah, well, that sounds really
So,
good.
yeah.
Interesting.
So, and it's like you're saying with the energy, it's almost like this getting beyond the words. You know,
Yeah.
even light language.
Yes.
It's really really connecting in with those different energy frequencies and understanding, you
Mm.
know, say
Yeah.
what we're here to bring through in the different ways we are to here to bring
Yeah.
it through.
Certainly. And yeah, I mean, going back to crystal energies, I experienced that when I first started connecting to crystals because sometimes there are no words. It's almost like there are no words to describe what you're feeling or sensing through the crystal. It's hard to put it into the common language or words, you know. It's such a feeling frequency.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's exciting times as we start to move more into that and using the
Yeah.
discernment around that as well.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful, Gwyneth. Thank you so much
Oh, you're welcome.
for sharing. I feel like I've received a transmission from you through this. That's really
Oh, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
yeah. Thank you
Lovely.
for agreeing. Okay.
Mm.
Okay, well, thank you everybody who has been watching and listening. There'll be more details about what Gwyneth does in the description box below where you're watching or listening, as well as how to contact her as well. Okay, sending you much love from my heart to yours.
Of love.